Live stream audio test, live stream audio test.
Welcome to the council meeting. Welcome to members of the public and to those councillors on Teams, which of course you can take part in debate but not vote. And also to point out this meeting will be streamed and a recording made. Thank you very much. Apologies for absence.
I've received advance apologies from Councillors Bryant, Charles and Ellis, and also technically absent, but on Teams, I think, are Councillors Griggs, Parker and Thornton.
Could I also add Councillor Nicholson, please?
Could I add Councillor Tim Snaden as well, please?
And to add Councillor Chard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come to public participation now. We have one speaker tonight, Malcolm Nicholson on Burnbeck Pier. Malcolm.
Hello. Can you hear me standing up? Can you hear me standing? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for listening to me. I'm going to go round the houses a bit before I get to Burnbeck Pier, because I did work for 42 years in local government, 28 years as a lawyer, and then 14 as town clerk, and 19 years in this building, so I can't resist going round the houses a tiny bit. But I have to say I'm proud of the achievements of the councils I've worked for, including Norfolk County Council in the 1980s, which was Conservative control at the time, although I think it's varied. Southampton City Council, which was Labour controlled at the time, but again varied. And then North Somerset and Western Town Council, and they've all achieved good things. I think local government has its importance and value, and that's really what I want to tell you about. Of course, in all those years, I do have some stories to tell. Some are amusing, one or two are shocking, but I'll save that for another time, and I'll never name anyone. For now, what I'd like to do is remember also start by remembering the kindness of so many councillors and officers and their professionalism, actually. I know councillors are not technically professionals, but some of them are very dedicated. I particularly remember two. Councillor Ivor Keel was chairman of the Planning and Conservation Committee in the first half of the 1990s. Ivor Keel, he was an absolute gentleman, but also the best chairman I've ever worked with, I would like to say. Gave everyone a chance to speak, listened to everyone, made it a very good debate on planning matters. And my boss, Tim Simpkins, who was Solicitor and Secretary from 1990 to 97, absolutely brilliant guy, worked so hard for the council and gave a lot of freedom to me as his deputy, saying, well, Malcolm, when he was on holiday, you decide and I'll back you, which was really encouraging, and I copied that. Sadly, pushed out towards the end of that time, but that's another story. People love to moan about councils and councillors and to object to things, but I have to say, what I've really come to say is I'm impressed by the achievements of the Rainbow administration, if it's called that. I know it's not a coalition, but whatever it is, the council, especially since 2019, despite being hit by the 2020 pandemic when you came in, and despite ever more government cuts with austerity over the years, you have really achieved such a lot, and I think that's amazing. I'm focusing on Weston because I live here, but that's not to say I'm dislike. In fact, I have friends in Clevedon and Nailsea areas, so but I live in Weston, so I will focus on Weston. First of all, your work dredging and restoring the marine lake, because tourism does matter to the economy of this town, much as other people dismiss it. Restoring lighting on the Silica. I mean, that's a small thing, maybe tens of thousands of pounds, I don't know, or maybe it was 100. But it just changes what was becoming a sort of semi-derelict bit of the town centre, very central, into a very lively area for the night economy. So well done. Getting the Banwell bypass started. All right, it's outside Weston, but it affects Weston a lot. Something we talked about for decades and decades and never thought would happen, and now it's happening. So well done for that. The bus hub and the town centre road improvements, actually I think some of those may have started before. I'm not sure of the exact dates of those, but that's a really good thing to have. It's almost a bus station and it's very good for public transport. And most of all, I'm now absolutely bowled over by the fact of your work towards saving and restoring Burnbeck Pier, which you know is just been neglected since the 1990s. And I think that would be an incredible crowning achievement if you can manage that. So please do keep it up. And all I want really to say to you is, yes, I know financially times are hard, and you've got to be very careful to stay solvent, otherwise you get government people in who couldn't really care less except doing the minimum. But be proud of your achievements, keep working for your communities, keep it up really. I really wanted to say thank you. There are other things I could say, but I think it's just brilliant what's happened since 2019. So thank you very much from the community.
Thank you, Malcolm. We now know why Councillor Nicholson's not here tonight. And you mentioned Ira Kill, can I also say Jean made the best sherry trifle ever. Anyway, any declarations of interest? No. Minutes of last meeting, can I have a proposal, seconder? Okay. All in favour? Thank you. Forward plan, leader.
Yes, just for noting, Chair, so I'm happy to move that.
Everybody happy? Right, so a motion by members. Just one tonight, yeah.
Yep, thank you, that's me. And as I've just had a word with the Chair, and it's quite a lengthy motion, I won't read it all out. And I'm just hoping that you have read it carefully. The title of the motion is Care Experience to be Treated as if it were a Protected Characteristic. And you will see that we request that the Council notes that every member and employee of this Council is a corporate parent. I think I emphasise that almost every Council meeting. And that we're all responsible for providing the very best care. Care experienced young people should be safeguarded from discrimination, which can affect them in areas like employment, education, housing. And acknowledging care experience as a protected characteristic will help normalise and validate their experiences. I've done, obviously, quite a lot of research and read quite a bit about this issue and talked to a lot of young people and also talked to other councils that have passed similar motions. I just wanted to highlight a few points. I mean, in a recent article in the Quorum Voice, one young person described being care experienced as a superpower because it develops qualities like adaptability, empathy, and resilience. However, they also pointed out that bullying is a significant challenge for many young people in care, and negative assumptions about them are something that really affect them and their personal circumstances throughout their lives. Unlike other groups, care-experienced individuals don't have protections from discrimination under the Equalities Act. And this lack of protection can lead to these discriminations and stigmas in their daily lives. For example, another young person reported that you get remarks, as she did, where a teacher said, well, you're doing really well for a kid in care. This sort of attitude and the perceptions can be really detrimental to young people. And you'll see in the motion that the independent review of children's social care has recommended that care experience should be designated as a protected characteristic nationally to combat this discrimination and ensure that these people get better support and similar protections based on age or disability. As one young person put it really well, we all have characteristics that define who we are, and they are, many of them, beyond our control. I didn't choose to be born when I was, determining my age. I didn't choose to be on the autistic spectrum. And yet, I'm protected from those problems that they might cause us. Similarly, I had no control over my care experience. If the government can protect me from discrimination based on my age or disability, then why not for my experience in care? She makes a very good point. So, despite the resilience of many care experienced people, society does often overlook their unique needs. Support for care experienced individuals can be inconsistent and vary across different geographical locations. As corporate parents, we share a collective responsibility to provide the best possible care and safeguarding for the children in our custody. We should commit to mentoring, amplifying the voices of looked after children and young people, and always prioritising their needs in all aspects of council work. And as a public sector body, we have that duty, like all public bodies, councils, to eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation of people with protected characteristics. So, to achieve these aims, a concerted effort is necessary, and this motion seeks to address that here in North Somerset. So, to cut to the chase, basically, what we are wanting is that North Somerset Council resolves that, one, in future, publications of information relating to people who share a protected characteristic should also include care-experienced people. We should proactively seek out and listen to the voices of care-experienced people of all ages when developing new council policies and plans, and where possible, those where the council produces them in partnership with others. 3, we should request the Head of People Services to explore how the council can seek to guarantee all care-experienced persons an interview where they meet the essential criteria for the post applied for. 4, that the Executive Member for Children's Services writes to all public bodies, the Chamber of Commerce, Federation of Small Businesses in North Somerset, to make them aware of this motion and, where possible and within the available resources, offer training on corporate parenting and issues facing care-experienced people, and to work with our partners and care-experienced population to understand what corporate parenting means to them. And finally, that the Executive Member for Children's Services will report back to the Council via the Corporate Parenting Report in the next municipal year on the actions taken as a result of this motion. So therefore, I'm seeking some support for this motion, and hopefully it will go to debate. Do I have 7 members?
Thank you. Can we have 7 members? 7 members to stand, please. Thank you very much. Right, debate.
Hi, I'd like to support this motion. I think it's really important and really excellent work. Thank you, Catherine, for bringing it, and thank you for articulating how important all of this work is. Both Catherine and I have attended the Local Government Association conferences, and I found it really informative to attend talks run by care-experienced individuals, and it really opened my eyes to some of the lived experience that they had. Specifically, one that was a memory was of a young woman who had gone to university and just found that the communications and the access to funding across had been really challenging, and it was definitely a point of learning that organisations can recognise that. I just thought that I'd add, I think in the past year or two, I found that reading poetry by Lemon Sissay, and that he's a man who was in the care, he's a care-experienced individual, and I've just got his book, his biography from the library, which is called My Name Is Why, and I was able to order it from the library and borrow it, and I'm looking forward to reading it, which is going to hopefully enlighten me more into learning about his care experience. But if you'd like to follow him, he's on social media and does really excellent short poetry. So just thought I'd share that.
Can I just respond to Bridget? Thank you, Councillor Petty, and that's great. And Lem Sissay actually did visit North Somerset in my first year as executive member, and I met him, so it was great. Yeah, it was fantastic, and thank you for your words. I also wanted to say that we do have our former young director here who's moved on to other things within the council, who, if you wish to hear any further evidence or testimony from our young people, she's on hand to talk to you or say something. Thank you.
I think maybe the lack of speakers is probably because most people are in favour of what you proposed. So if there's no other speaker, we could put that to the vote, that we accept the motion. Yes? All in favour? I think that's unanimous, Catherine, which saves you a lot of talking after your illness.
Thank you, everyone. I think this is a really important move for us as a council, so thank you, everybody.
Right, medium-term financial plan. Leader.
Thank you, Chair. So, obviously, colleagues will know that the executive report at the beginning of December considered the medium-term financial plan and our budget for 25-26. This was, of course, before the draft local government finance settlement was issued by the government. So I thought it would be helpful to just bring a verbal update to the meeting today in advance of further consideration of the budget issues at the executive at the beginning of February, and then, of course, full council next month. So I'll just give you a quick update, both in terms of our current in-year pressures and where we've got to with the medium-term financial plan and the budget for 2025-26. So you'll recall that in respect of in-year pressures, when we brought the paper to executive back in December, we were forecasting a gap of 8.2 million, so a gap between what we're forecast to spend and our available resources of 8.2 million pounds. Officers across the council have continued to work to mitigate these pressures over the last few weeks and months, and I can report that we have reduced the forecast gap for the current financial year to around 1.5 million. However, this work has required significant one-off use of reserves and one-off balancing funding, and obviously we have still got a forecast gap for the current financial year. So work will continue through the directorates over the next few weeks to continue all of the hard work that's gone on to try and contain spending pressures and find ways to cut costs. Then, when we look at the medium-term financial plan and the 25-26 budget, you'll recall that in December we were reporting that we had a gap of £2.5 million for 25-26 and standing at about £7.5 million over the 3-year period of the medium-term financial plan. Following the draft local government finance settlement and further work that we've undertaken, as of today, we do still have a gap of around £500,000 for 25-26. And an £8 million gap over the 3 years of the MTFP. But again, it's only by making significant use of one-off reserves and one-off resources that we've been able to get to a position where we're close to balancing the budget for 2025-26. The draft local government settlement, which was announced just before Christmas, did have some welcome measures in it. There was some additional targeted funding for special educational needs and disabilities and for social care, but it hasn't closed our gap for 2025-26 completely. And those that were paying close attention will note that actually our medium-term gap over the 3 years is actually larger now than it was before the local government and finance settlement. So it demonstrates that whilst the short-term work that we've been undertaking is proving effective and we are closing the gap, our medium-term and longer-term landscape still looks particularly challenging. I should say that we were particularly disappointed not to get any recovery grant at all from the government, and that was particularly disappointing when that grant was specifically to support councils who, like us, have high spending pressures but a low council tax base. So really disappointing that we didn't get any funding through that. However, we do look forward to the spending review that's coming up this spring, the promised consultation on reform of local government funding and the move to 3-year settlements, which hopefully will change the narrative that we are experiencing here in North Somerset, but also all councils across the country are going through. So I think in summary, we are making progress, but that medium-term outlook remains difficult. And it should be noted that all of this is only being achieved as a result of a continuing squeeze on services, continuing increases in council tax and fees and charges, and the use of one-off resources. I'd just like to take the opportunity to remind everyone that we have got an all-member budget briefing and engagement session next week on Monday the 20th, which is in person and online, which will be an opportunity to understand some of these issues and explore further options, as well as feedback on some of the findings and the work that officers have done following up from the previous session that we had before Christmas. And then, of course, that will be followed up with the executive meeting on the 5th of February and then full council on the 18th of February, when we will look to agree our budget. As always, I want to particularly thank all of the officers for their hard work in managing these pressures and identifying opportunities for efficiency and cost savings, to colleagues obviously for engaging with the budget setting process, and to all of our staff right across the council who are continuing to deliver good quality services and outcomes for local residents despite the black cloud of our financial position hanging over us.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick one. As in December, the budget papers were unclear about the impact of the national insurance rise. Could he clarify if the local government settlement has mitigated this?
Yep, thank you very much. So we have been, or largely, we haven't heard there's a formula as part of the local government draft settlement which sets out how much support we're getting for the national insurance rise. So we don't definitively know what the final figure is until we get the final settlement. But the gist of it is that we are fully compensated for our own directly employed costs. But of course, what we aren't compensated for is the costs in terms of commission services, so particularly around social care, but also public health and a whole range of contracts where we commission others to provide services on our behalf, where absolutely those national insurance pressures are absolutely driving costs for us next year.
All okay? Councillor Ashton.
So, Mike, does that mean it would be cheaper to then start employing people ourselves and getting the NI back rather than paying commission to agencies? You never thought you'd hear me say that, did you?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is so timely, Councillor Ashton, because we're absolutely discussing at the moment ways in which we can do more to look at how opportunities to insource services. So I'll take you as a volunteer to be the first member, along with Councillor Thornton, of the insourcing group. But you're right, you're absolutely right. And it demonstrates that the landscape has changed. And whilst 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, it was all about outsourcing to drive efficiencies and lower costs, we are now seeing that narrative change. And I think that's really important. The problem we've got, of course, you'll appreciate, is that you can't just flick a switch and bring everything back in-house tomorrow. And so we've got a lot of work to do to look at options to achieve that over the longer term.
Yeah, could I just ask one follow-up to that, Mike? There's increasing rumours about the government having to make further cuts on services. And as soon as you hear that, you think local government's going to be first in line. Have you heard anything about that? You're talking about the spring review, hoping that we're actually going to get a fairer settlement, which, good luck. But is that going to be overtaken? Have you heard anything about cuts actually coming in that review as well?
So, you're absolutely right. We obviously look to the spending review to rebase the amount of resource that's available for local government, and we hope that the government gets the message and is able to find ways to put more resources, particularly into adults and children's social care and SEND. We want the formula review to give us a fair deal, because I would remind colleagues, North Somerset is around £40 million a year shortchanged compared to the average English council because of the way the formula works. So that's not about more money in the system, that's about divvying up the money fairly. So I think there are potential wins for us on both fronts, but I completely agree with you. The reality is that given the financial headwinds nationally, it is quite possible that the deck chairs are rearranged on the Titanic, but we're still on the Titanic.
Thank you. Okay, move on. Metro West.
Yeah, sorry, me again. But this one has got actual recommendations, so hopefully a bit more meat to it. So colleagues will know that we have been continuing over a long period of time the project to deliver Metro West to link Portishead and Pill to Bristol. And the purpose of this report is to make sure that we're continuing to do the right things to put in place the delegated authorities, draft agreements and arrangements in order to progress with the construction phase of the Portishead Railway as quickly as possible once we get approval of the final business case from the Department for Transport. So this report is absolutely clear in setting out all the key agreements that we need to negotiate, any land and contract awards, and to approve the delegations in advance, subject to the approval of the final business case. We remain confident in the business case that has been submitted. We've worked extremely well with Department for Transport officials and the Network Rail team to try and mitigate the cost pressures on the scheme overall and get in place all of the required agreements, compulsory purchase powers and so on that are necessary. Colleagues will know from previous reports that we have delivered a number of the ecology enabling works and other enabling works in order to enable the project to continue at pace. And all we need now, and how often have we said that? All we need now is the government to sign off on the final business case. I do think that despite the challenges and pressures that we've had, the stars are beginning to align. But what we also know with this project is that delay equals more costs, which means more delay. And we have been stuck in that doom loop for far, far too long. So I'm very pleased that our local MPs and all parties in the council have been supporting the case to the Department for Transport for a quick decision, and with a favourable wind and a quick decision and the approval of this report and recommendations tonight, we can begin construction this summer with the intent of getting trains running by the autumn of 2027. But all of this remains subject to government approvals. We are in a review process at the moment. We've been given indications, encouraging indications that is being, this is a wrong phrase to use, but fast-tracked, and let's hope they stick to that. We get the approvals and consent and we can progress it. I just want to say again, and you've only got to look at the agenda to realise the complexity of this project, because I think something like 130 of the 144 pages of this agenda are about Metro West. So just to underline the unbelievable complexity of the work that our officer team with Network Rail and others have been doing, and pay tribute to their continued dedication on what has probably felt like a lifelong mission to get this project over the line. So I really appreciate all their continued hard work, but I would ask colleagues to support the recommendations so that we're in the strongest place to deliver as quickly as possible.
Any comments or straight to the vote? Yeah.
Thank you. I just have a quick comment on this, and as the ward member for Pill, of course, I fully support this and hope very much, alongside the the ward members for Portishead, we hope very much to see this be decided by the DFT favourably as soon as possible. I just wanted to point out how, as you mentioned, Mike, how complex this is, and the number of pages that I've spent, detailing all the different contracts. I think, as a councillor, we do have to balance a kind of clarity of presentation with the complexity of material. And I do, looking at the recommendations, I was filled with anxiety about whether or not we should be, do I know all the details of all of these contracts? Are they absolutely the right thing? Of course, I trust the hard work that all our officers have put in, but I think it's just something to point out that I do struggle a bit, and maybe some of my colleagues do as well. We have to be clear about what we're agreeing on, and yeah, thank you.
Right, Warren, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as a member for Portishead and a resident of Portishead for very many years, this is really exciting to see this project taking one small step further towards where we hope we're going to end up. I know many people have spent an awful lot of time trying to get this project off the ground, and then just as we thought we were getting there with it, the government decided to put a review on it. So yeah, I've been watching for the last probably 18 months now, planning permissions coming through and discharge of conditions coming through on this, and it's good to see that we're now at a final stage, and I just hope that the government will give us the decision that we want, and I think that we deserve.
Councillor Young.
Thank you. And there obviously has been a huge amount of work over very many years on this. I just wanted to flag with everyone that currently under consultation is the Western Gateway Subnational Transport Body Strategic Investment Programme. Quite a mouthful. But that Strategic Investment Programme document is something that we certainly haven't had for some years, if we've ever had one as a region. I've been leading some work on behalf of that board to make sure that we get one in place, and the consultation goes until the 2nd of February. The Portishead Railway Scheme, Portishead to Bristol Railway Scheme, is one of 38 proposals that's been identified as of regional significance, and therefore included as one that the subnational transport body would be pushing for investment for. Now, hopefully we don't need that additional push, but I would really strongly encourage anybody who thinks this scheme should go ahead to make sure that you register that view in the consultation process, and I will circulate the link to all members to make sure that you have it. I think it has been already, but we will make sure that we get that out again. And particularly, I think any comments around the importance that will have for economic development of the region and not just our own area would be really helpful to reiterate. But I will send that information around, and I'd strongly encourage everyone to continue to keep the pressure up on that, so that we can keep pushing forward for that government approval.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you. I am part of the Portishead Railway Group, and I joined that in 2003. And I've been watching, supporting, and everything else since then, and all of the delays and everything else, and you think, why can't they just do it? Because it is needed, and so many people now say, oh, it's never going to happen. It's people either just believe it's coming or just think, well, I've heard this all before. We need that railway. We need it in North Somerset. We need to go to Bristol. We need to go beyond. We need to go to London. We want to go throughout the country by train and even further afield into Europe. So please, all of you, can you make sure that you support everything about the Portishead to Bristol Railway? And as has just been said, please complete the consultation. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure over the years, Councillor Ashton would be, all the work he's put into it will be wondering whether they ever see it, but hopefully we will. Councillor Waite.
Thank you. As somebody who doesn't live anywhere near the railway, I feel duty-bound to say that I also think it's a really good idea. I live completely on the other side of North Somerset, nowhere near a station that goes to Portishead, but I would like to point out that the one thing we haven't talked about yet is the enormous opportunity we have here with the new railway to reduce our carbon footprint in North Somerset, and the numbers of people who are going to be using that as a daily commute and as, you know, ways of getting in and out of Bristol, I think is really, really positive, and I think we mustn't forget that that's a major, major benefit of that route. Thank you.
Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to say anything until people started going into history lessons. Somerset Hall, late 1980s, we were assured by government people at the time, it's on the list, it'll come. By the way, Portishead, you're going to have a large number of houses, but don't worry, the traffic will be compensated because you'll have a railway line. Chairman, I'll believe it when I see it. I won't do anything to get in the way, but I think we have to be realistic about this. It's been 5 years in the future since Malcolm Nicholson was here. And Malcolm Nicholson's boss once looked me in the eye and said, "Councillor, don't let common sense cloud your thinking." So we really have to think, Chairman. Let's do all we possibly can, but it's not in our hands. Leaders of this council and the region have done absolutely everything they possibly could for the last 25 years to bring this to fruition, and I sincerely hope it works.
Well, let's hope it's coming down the track. Councillor Bell, would you like to sum up?
Not really. I mean, I was just going to say thank you very much for all the support. Whether it be early adopters like Councillor Burden or Johnny-come-latelys like Councillor Mason, I think we're all united. All right, come on, calm down. It must be a slow night, mustn't it? And we're all united in our message. And frankly, I don't think we can do any more than we have done. We've put our money into it. We've put our, blood and sweat into it over many, many years. The case is strong, and we just need the green light, which I think is something the railways are quite good at. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, all in favour of that? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I think this, we'll have to see when the train comes on. Well, it's got a bell on it, because it's you again. Commissioning plan.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 9, so this report outlines the plan to procure a new contract for the supply of temporary agency workers for the council, as our current contract with Matrix Limited is set to expire in November. We're proposing to move away from the joint commissioning approach which we've deployed previously with other local authorities, and looking to develop a single supplier as part of this procurement process. It's one of those interesting ones where actually working collaboratively, jointly with other authorities didn't actually work out as well as we might have hoped, because the differences between the amount of temporary workers that different authorities needed to bring in and the relative lack of flexibility that gave us to respond to circumstances meant that it wasn't necessarily the perfect solution for us or for other local authorities. I hope that colleagues will support the proposed procurement and commissioning plan. The overall aim of this, of course, is to reduce our agency spend, manage our legal obligations, and ensure a smooth transition to a new contract by testing the market. But at the same time, we'll continue to do all of the work that our HR team have been doing to recruit permanent roles into our establishment where we need them, because we know that that's better in terms of the long-term outcomes for the council. So I'm happy to just propose the recommendations.
Everybody happy? All in favour? Thank you. Right, question time. Hands up. I make it? Yes, thank you. Right, Councillor Petty first.
If the chair will allow me just a first very minor thing, I think it's okay to report when there is a typo in the first proposal on a motion in the last item. So I will, that's not my question, Chair, but I'd like to point out, and I do hope that the other 50 people in the room had read, that on a page 139, instead of writing the word north, we wrote N-O-T-H, and I'm going to take a brownie point for that. So I would have raised my arm to point out that I'd like correct spelling in our reports. Right. Sorry about that, Chair. I would like to ask... okay, so I'm going to start my question here. The 0 Hour is a campaign for the support of the Climate and Nature Bill. In early January, I joined residents and climate action groups in Nailsea. They are concerned and want to see cross-party support for this government bill. Today, I would like to ask Executive Member for the Climate Emergency and the Council Leader to support the Climate and Nature Bill, which was formerly the Climate and Ecology Bill, which is having its second reading in Parliament taking place on the 24th of January. Please could you write to support this campaign and copy in our local MPs and place our support of it on the council website, because this is all in line with our current work regarding the climate emergency and our response to the nature emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Petty. Thank you. Yes, the CAN bill, as it is sometimes called, is something that's been spoken about for quite a long time, and it has cross-party support in Westminster as well. It's something that individuals can also join, and I supported it some time ago. I was very sorry not to be able to be there at the event when the photograph was taken in Nailsea, because I would have been there if I could have. I'm very much in favour of this, and I would very much like to be able to sign this on behalf of the council, assuming others don't have a problem with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dole.
Yes, mine was to Mark Caniford regarding the Bristol Airport expansion. I know that it'll go through its process and things are a bit everywhere, but there are, sitting on ACC, there keeps coming up a few pieces of what the council is doing that I'm unable to find, and was just wondering how I can find these. So it's the North Somerset Planning Performance Agreement with the airport and the EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment Scoping Report, which North Somerset will play quite a big role in completing. I think a lot of residents that I know are wondering what's going on with that, how open is the council being with it, and I'm just wondering how, as a member, I can find those reports, get involved to ensure that I'm representing the community, and what positive kind of impact we can have on that.
Okay, thank you for that, Tom. So you'll have to bear with me slightly because it is quite complex. So I'm going to answer two parts to that. First of all, the environmental impact assessment. That is a document that is set out in the Town and Country Planning Act, I just looked, 2011. Now, what it needs to be in that is set out in that report. That is legislation. So what needs to be in that assessment report is legislation. We get it. The council do not write it. The council do not set it. The only thing the council get involved is a scoping report. Now, if the applicant feels that it doesn't need one, it will ask the council to make that decision. Now, on a significant application, it certainly will need one, and then it will rely, and then the applicant will have to have a person with expertise or qualifications to write that report. Then council reads that report and then will make its comments, and that is where we councillors get involved in that report. The planning policy agreement, again, so that is generally left to officers because it's a complex legal document. So, and the sister might correct me if he's aware of those and I'm wrong, but there are set fees, but on major applications, those fees are negotiated for the high value negotiations. That said, we can't just whack a figure on it. We have to evidence that cost. We can't just say we want an extra £200,000. We have to evidence why we want that money and what that money will be spent on. So it's not a case of a wish list, it's a case of what we legally can prove that we require. Otherwise, they simply won't pay it, and they simply don't have to if they can evidence that we shouldn't pay it. And that is part of that negotiation. So in terms of the PPA agreement, that is recovering money for the council, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers the cost for people to put applications in. And we leave that to officers because they know what those costs are. And in terms of environmental impact, yes, we don't get to set that criteria. That is set for us in the Town and Planning Acts. So we then read that, and we then can challenge what they've written and go back during the planning application to say we either don't agree or whatever. But that is where that support is. Of course, there is no application in yet for the part you're talking about, so we really would be getting ahead of ourselves in those terms. But I'm more than happy to make sure I can confirm that with you, with officers, because SA is complicated, and the details of what we can affect, and I can bring that back to you.
Councillor Tristram.
Thank you. This is a question for the leader. Back in 2022, this council declared itself an anti-racist council. And so I wonder if there is a plan that we should stop using the social media platform X as a way of getting information out to our residents. A number of organisations, including Devon County Council, so the same sort of organisation that we are, have done this recently. And I think probably many of us would like to distance ourselves from a platform that is nowadays either frankly racist or at least tolerating a great deal of racist stuff, as well as other highly dubious things.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Tristram, and I have sympathy with the point that you make. I'm happy to take that away and talk to the communications team, and we can see what the landscape looks like across local government. I think we've always got a balance to be struck between confronting intolerance and racism and giving a free plane to it. But we'll certainly look at that issue, and I'll confirm any next steps to you separately.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Chairman, in 462 BC Rome, it was a crime to sing or parody politicians in the street upon pain of death. More recently, in 1530, licences were needed to perform in English streets, and punishment was less severe. It was merely 2 consecutive days' whipping. Troubadours, minstrels, buskers, carolers and wassailers have been part of our folk music street scene for centuries and long made this entertainment continue. However, amplification now helps performers force their offerings, whether wanted or not, upon shopkeepers, shoppers and outdoor cafe customers. Edinburgh advises buskers not to use amplification. In Weston-super-Mare, we have some very talented street performers, but we also have a few who are far from pleasantly entertaining, in fact, are simply unmusical. Would the executive member please look further into what might be achieved using the 1990 Environmental Protection Act, antisocial behaviour legislation, and potential street licensing regulations to reduce the amplified noise emanating from those few whose offerings seem to annoy rather than entertain?
Thank you, Councillor Crockford-Hawley, for your most eloquent question. If I could request the question in writing, so I can then forward it on to officers, that would be much appreciated. But just to give you a short answer in relation to your question, very much aware, as you are aware, I work in the town centre as a street warden, so I know the particular buskers that you're referring to. Obviously, as you've illustrated currently, they aren't technically breaking any laws. unless environmental protection do look into it a bit more closer in relation to the amplification of the music. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to disappoint you, and it's the ones that are not so good are the ones that make the most money. But yes is the short answer to your question.
Obviously paying them to go. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question to Councillor Gibbons under her skills portfolios. Hopefully she's aware that the DVSA is working to cut waiting lists for driving tests. So I would ask her, would you be able to support the call for evidence which ends on the 11th of February by using council communications, and also commit to responding to the formal consultation when it's announced, and to then feature the national campaign Ready to Pass on all the relevant resources?
Very simple answer. Yes, I'm happy to support that, and I'll talk to you further about that. Okay? Thank you.
Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Chairman. Response to Councillor Crockford-Hawley's question, there was a white paper by Lord Young called Lifting the Burden, which pointed out councillors should not be arbiters of good taste. My question, though, Chairman, is to Councillor Caniford, and it revolves around 106 agreements again. I asked him a while ago if he would find a mechanism whereby councillors can know the progress of and check on some of the major 106 agreements. And my reason then was quite clear, that when I was a councillor in the 2005, a 106 agreement had been talked about, discussed, and still hadn't been implemented when I was back in this chamber in 2023. So I thought that was it. But another one has come to my notice now, Chairman, and that's in Adlington House in Portishead, which is an elderly person's care residence, and there seems to be some disagreement between the interpretation of the word care between the residents, this council, and the owners of the building, and those members of the planning committee who gave approval for this development in the first place. Put it bluntly, Chairman, this house was built, allowed special planning conditions, namely not having anything like the parking spaces required or anything else, because it was for elderly people as retirement with a view to getting care in later life when they wanted it. This appears now to be in dispute, Chairman. The members of the planning committee at the time, I believe, were told this would be worked into the 106 agreement, and it's open to doubt whether it has been. And the residents there now are quite concerned because they're being clearly told the care element that they bought these properties under is likely to disappear, and there will be a housekeeping and security element. And as you can appreciate, the councillors who agreed with this in the past are not happy, and certainly nor are the residents. So can he find some way of allowing members notification of how these 106 agreements are formulated?
So there's two parts to that, and I'll answer the first one, but Councillor Bell tells me he's aware of that case, so he'll answer the second part. In terms of the mechanism, you are aware I have told you that the council are formulating and putting in, they have a system to be able to track 106 payments and where and when they're spent. Populating that is proving to be expensive and resources, as you can probably imagine currently, but once it is done, then councillors will all have access to that programme, so they can see exactly where the 106 monies in their areas have been spent or what has been agreed and done. So that is ongoing. I will try and get you an update on some timelines, but I can't give you that right now, and I think Councillor Bell will answer the other part of your question.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge the point about Adlington House, Peter, which I know the social care team and the planning team are both aware of, and the approach that's being taken by the Methodist Homes Association in respect of that property. We have, a planning inspector has been out, and we have re-looked at the planning approval and the Section 106 agreement. At the moment, we don't believe that there is a case for intervention by us as planning authority in respect of those things, but we will continue to monitor the situation. More generally, though, that doesn't undermine the argument that Methodist homes are acting in pretty poor spirit in terms of the way that the residents of the house are being treated and the proposed change of care arrangements. And in particular, it's worth noting that none of the residents at Adlington House are funded by or receiving support from North Somerset Council, so they're all privately paying for that provision. So some of the arguments that Methodist homes have put forward about not getting enough money from local authorities to be financially viable doesn't stack up, because actually no local authorities are contributing anyway.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Pryke.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Executive Member for Homes and Health. As I'm sure that she'll be aware, the government has produced a new standard method for assessing housing need. This new method, as I understand it, will require North Somerset Council to build 1,593 homes per year. Will the Executive Member therefore guarantee that these homes will not be built on either a floodplain or a space currently designated as Greenbelt?
Jenna, thank you. I think it's probably aimed at me because it's regarding the local plan rather than your housing portfolio. So this council made a decision some years ago that it would not build on floodplain, or flood zone 3. So the government, in its latest national planning policy framework, has strengthened that, and they do not believe that we should be building on flood zone either. In terms of the amount they want us to build, well, I can't guarantee we can or we can't, simply because we have never built more than about 900 houses in one calendar year anyway. So we will, through the local plan process, try or have to find those numbers, which is going to be a huge challenge for this council to achieve, but we will do it. And can I guarantee where we will build? I can't. I can guarantee that we will try and avoid flood zone 3 because it's people's lives and homes, and I feel that it is inappropriate to build on that in that environment, and it has proven to be bad policy decision making in the past. But there are other areas that the government have changed their priorities on, so we will have to look at those areas throughout the district because we are constrained, as we know. We have a constrained district and we will have to build where we have to build. Government will either take that decision out of our hands if we don't do it ourselves. So if there's any part of that question I've missed, please give me a nudge.
Okay, Councillor Payne.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councillor Waite what's being done to improve the performance of curbside waste collection crews on the dropping of materials, recyclable materials in the street during collections. It's an ongoing issue, but it's been a particular problem during the collections around Christmas when the volume of waste was greater. It seems reasonable for residents to expect that if recycling material is dropped in the street by the operatives, then it should be picked up rather than left strewn around the street.
Thank you for that. I have to say, in fact, I was talking to somebody today about waste and recycling and suddenly realised that for several months I'd had not a single complaint about waste. So maybe I shouldn't have said that, because here it is. I think it's absolutely true that there are situations that we've all seen where things have been dropped in the road and they haven't been picked up, and that really shouldn't be happening. I do know that as part of the rollout to 3 weekly black bin collections, we're doing an extensive training programme for all our teams, which are all around, how we collect the waste and how to behave, but also in terms of the new routes. I will speak to the department and make sure that they pick up on that issue, and that should become part of that training programme if it isn't already in there. Thank you.
Right, on Teams, Councillor Thornton.
Hi, can you hear me okay? I've not been attending one of these meetings on Teams before. Thanks for that. So my question's for the leader, and it's about insourcing, not surprisingly. One of the benefits of insourcing has already been mentioned by Councillor Ashton. So my question is, I've previously written to the leader to request that the council establishes a cross-party task and finish group to review all council services to establish which ones could be brought back in-house on the grounds of cost, quality and control. I recognise this will not make an immediate saving for the council, but if we identified those services which are currently outsourced but could be provided more efficiently in-house, we could make significant savings for future years, along with giving us greater control over them. So I know that the leader is considering my request. He's told me this at a meeting last week, but I just wondered if we've got any time scale for when this may or may not happen. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Helen. And as I alluded to in the discussion last week and earlier to Councillor Ashton, I'm actively considering this, and I hope to be in a position to confirm some next steps by the end of January. The only delaying factor really is to make sure that I've got an opportunity to have a conversation with the relevant lead policy and scrutiny panel before we set course on this. But I'm absolutely keen to look at both our policy position around insourcing versus outsourcing, but also to ensure that we do review upcoming contracts and commissioning arrangements in the way that you suggest.
Thank you.
Councillor Pepperell.
Thank you. Councillor Long, I believe this is for. We have a lot of trouble on Queensway with congestion, and the Highways Department drew up some very good plans last year to improve this, but they tell me there is an offer of funding, but it will run out in the autumn. So I wanted to ask if we could make sure that that is used and not wasted. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's for me, but I am not aware specifically of the funding stream for that particular piece of work. But if you could provide me with the details, I'll follow that up and make sure that we're in a position to continue with that piece of work that appears to have funding for it. Happy to have a conversation or for that to be in writing, but very happy to pick that up with the team. Thank you.
Right, I'll chase that up. Thank you.
And finally, as you know, although everybody's in good humour tonight, I don't normally like except members asking questions, but Councillor Solomon.
It's not a question.
Oh, I thought you signalled. Sorry.
I did, but I'll withdraw that signal.
The train stopped. Right, thank you very much. That takes us on to nothing under item 11, nothing under item 12, announcements, nothing from me tonight. Leader, anything? But there is from the Chief Exec.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to advise that following the recent restructuring across the Council, updates to the Constitution are now needed to ensure governance reflects the operational changes that we've made. And the monitoring officer will be updating the Constitution and delegated decisions accordingly with immediate effect. I also wanted to note that we have appointed the new Director of Environment and Assets and Transport Services. I mailed you all just before Christmas, but just making sure you had picked that up. It's Mickey Green, and he's confirmed his start date will be the 15th of March, which will allow some handover with Lucy before her retirement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. No urgent business. I have to apologise to members. I did say we'd aim to finish at 7:30. I'm sorry we're so early, but I have a Cup Skittles match tonight, so thank you for your help in getting through the meeting early. Here endeth the lesson.